the end.
The year is 2004. SpongeBob gets his first theatrical movie on the big screen, 4 90s Nicktoons end, feeling like the end of an era, and TAC finally officially becomes a part of Nickelodeon. I bring that last point up because it brings us into our next review. See, the first TAC game really didn't have the Nickelodeon branding next to it like other Nick games because there was no show. But given the surprise success of the first game, it only makes sense that the people fully knew TAC as a part of the Nick family. Thus, a sequel was inevitable, and that leads us to TAC 2, The Staff of Dreams. Once again, Avalanche Software and THQ/Nick Games are back at the helms. This game was released on the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and also made its way to the Xbox, unlike the first game. Released on October 11th, 2004 for North America, March 24th, 2005 for Europe, and 1 day later for the Australian Xbox and GameCube ports. Does this game improve on the first game's shortcomings? Yeah, kind of. The story picks up where the first one left off. While stuck in the dream world, TAC is told he must fight the Dream Guardian, obtain the titular Staff of Dreams, and save the princess. He ends up escaping and waking up from a 16-day nap. And so it's up to TAC, Jabulba, and Locke to figure out what the heck is going on, all while fighting returning foes and getting help from some old friends. The story seems fine for the most part, but it's pretty obvious who's pulling the strings, and the story ends on a miserable cliche that angered me during my stream of the game. Anyone who's played it knows what I'm talking about. If not, consider this a warning before you play. The gameplay itself hasn't changed that much from the first game. You're still going to be doing much of what you did in the first game, but there are some differences that do improve the gameplay. For starters, the game progresses in a more linear fashion. There's no more hub to navigate it. You now just go straight from level to level as you progress. It's like going from hubs to access levels to level screens, like in Maximo 1 to Maximo 2. I love this. It pretty much fixed one of the worst aspects of the game by making it less confusing to navigate. And this is despite you going in and out of the dream world. Speaking of which, when you're in the dream world, you have some extra abilities, mainly the ability to glide. You're going to do more complicated platforming here, but the non-dream world stuff is pretty much like the first game. Other differences include always having TAC's weapon armed, and the mana is now represented by a feather count compared to a meter. Animals also return and play a part in helping with the game's puzzles, both in the dream and real world. There are even some new ones that didn't appear in the first game. Juju magic is also easier to use here. You hold down one button and use the other buttons in various combos at the same time. Juju powers also are given at certain points in the game compared to finding them yourself. With all these improvements, it seems like we're on the right track, right? Well, sort of. While these improvements do help the game, I knew they had to do something to screw it up. And that's where we come to the game's main problem, the difficulty. For the most part, anyone who's competent in platformers will probably breeze through most of the levels without much issue. It's the last few levels where things start to get off the rails. The checkpoints become less frequent even with infinite lives. The platforming becomes more complicated in the real world, and the game just flips a switch without any real build-up. It catches first-time players off guard and makes it more frustrating for no real reason. I'm not asking the game to be easy as hell, but if you're going to ramp the difficulty up, it should be ramped up gradually. It shouldn't be very sudden. Oh, and the Rift River can go die in a fire, by the way. Some of the levels also do seem a bit confusing as well, but not as much as the first game, thankfully. Much like the first game, this game's graphics are pretty good. Textures look sharper while still retaining the cartoon feel of it all. Environments also look pretty good as well, and retain a lot of the same elements that make them look good in the first game. It also helps that many of the same styles of areas are used here, such as tropical forests, canyons, snowy tundras, etc. Again, environment-specific stuff is handled well and caters to the strains of each of the areas. Character models, item models, and the such also look pretty good, and the game does have a slight edge over the first one in terms of graphics. Controls also work very well. The camera isn't as slow-moving as the first game, and new additions do work well. Otherwise, it pretty much controls similarly to the first game. Sound design is also on point here as well. Music has much of the same tribal feel like the first one. The sound effects were also pretty good like the first game, and they complement the music and other sounds, like voice acting, really well to immerse yourself in the game. Many of the first game's voice actors are back to voice the same characters they did the first time around. Again, they all sound good, and Tak finally has more stuff to say rather than just the same one-liners he usually said in the first game. There are some bonus minigames known as the Dinky Games afterwards that you can access after certain points in the story mode pass, so there's a little replayability. Tak 2, the Staff of Dreams, is a few steps forward but one step back. While the game does fix the navigatability problems in the first, in addition to keeping constraints, things like great graphics, controls, and sound, in addition to adding some improvements, the difficulty spike towards the end, and miserable cliche ending might be a turn-off for some. While I think this game is better than the first, it still does have some problems that might make it a little harder to recommend. If you have to pick one of the two Tak games, go with this one, or at least of the first two in this type of style. Since this game doesn't have any side quests that grind the game to a halt, I'll be nicer with the score here. I give Tak 2 the Staff of Dreams a 3 out of 5. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, click the big red button below to subscribe. Check out the other links in the description for more cool stuff, and check out the playlist on screen for more content. See you in the next video.